This is Bob Gimlin, and listen to Alasquatch.
Welcome to Alasquatch, the show all about Bigfoot in the great state of Alaska. I'm your host, Beans Baxter. So lace up your boots, zip up your coat, and come with me on an adventure as we explore all things cryptid in the last frontier. All right, holy cow, we're back. We are back from Washington. Man, feels like I haven't put anything out in forever. I guess the last episode dropped on June 14th, so it hasn't been that long. It hasn't even been a month, but I've had a lot go on since then and now, so wow. What are we going to talk about today? I'm just going to do a really quick wrap-up on the Metaline Falls Bigfoot Festival. I think I've got some cool insights to bring to the table, being as it was like my first time, not as a speaker, because I've spoke at the Sasquatch Roundups before, and a couple other places, but I've never been a vendor, so it was really my first time as a vendor, I guess, and I thought I would kind of talk about how it was different than some of my other conference experiences. It was kind of a different animal this go around. And I had fun, and I really, really enjoyed talking to the other enthusiasts and researchers and people that showed up. And I always learn something new when I go and talk to other people that are into Bigfoot and Bigfoot research. And it seems like there's always something I pick up and either put in my toolbox or put in the back of my head for future reference, just in case, or maybe I hear something that kind of ties something else together, kind of like, oh, okay, that makes sense, and that must be why they do this, or something like that. But this one, I mean, it was different. Although I did get to hang out and talk to some really cool people, I didn't get to do a whole lot of, I guess, festivities. I didn't get to walk over to the other vendors, and I'll explain that a little bit in a more in detail. But this was the first Metaline Falls Bigfoot Festival. It was a film festival and a conference per se, and they had something of a town hall, I believe, during 2020, and there was a lot of people there, like way more than they expected. And I think that kind of planted the seed for them to do this festival. So it's been some time in the making. They've been working on it for a while, and it finally happened. And I was lucky enough, I got invited to speak, probably thanks to Stephen Major, much thanks to him. And I was there with the likes of like Ken Gerhard, Adam Davies, Bob Gimlin was there. Man, who else? I know I'm leaving a bunch of people out, but there was just Igor Burtsev was there. I mean, just like a lot of pillars in the community, and to be basically like lumped in with those guys and put with, you know, my table like over there in the area where their tables were, where the speakers' tables were, it was just kind of weird, kind of surreal, kind of like I don't know that I'm supposed to be here. But I had a really great time. We got there on Friday night, and they treated us really well. They fed us so good. They had some volunteers working in the kitchen, and I mean, they were just taking really good care of us. They fed us really well, and it was just phenomenal. They put us up in the hotel, which is a historic hotel. It really reminded me of the Lowe Hotel in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. In fact, the whole town of Metaline Falls, it almost has a Point Pleasant kind of vibe to it. And I don't mean that in a creepy way. I don't mean that it's creepy. It's just, it's an old town, and it's kind of, I don't want to say past its prime, but it's just there's not much there anymore in the way of industry or economics or jobs. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way at all. It's happening to a lot of towns. In fact, if it wasn't for tourism, our town here where I live wouldn't have anything. So it's just kind of one of those old small towns that had, I guess, a heyday. It had a big industry. They had a big concrete plant there where they produced concrete for nearby dams. And then, they built the dams, and the concrete plants shut down, kind of affecting the economy of the community. And so you've got this big hulking concrete plant kind of in the background of the town. You can pretty much see it everywhere you go in town. And it's just kind of this reminder of what used to be, I guess. And it just had a really weird vibe to it, almost like a Point Pleasant vibe. And of course the hotel, I don't remember what year the hotel was built, but it just had such a old time vibe to it. It's just built so old timey, because you go upstairs and everything's wooden and it's all creaky, and the bathrooms it's almost like community bathrooms where if you have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, you got to get up, leave your room, and go find a bathroom. And it was a really cool vibe. The only complaint I had was our power outlet. We had one power outlet in our room, and it didn't work, and that kind of put a monkey wrench in my plans, because we had purchased or had got a Square device in order to accept credit cards at our booth, because we thought most people use credit cards anymore. And so that was we were depending on our phones to be able to accept credit cards, and we weren't able to charge our phones. So it ended up working out. I had some solar powered chargers that I had brought, because I thought I might need them on my expedition after the festival, and I just happened to have them all good and ready to go and charged up. And so between those and just plugging our phones in whenever we could find an outlet, like when we went to dinner the one night for the VIP dinner, my wife plugged her phone into a nearby outlet and just had it charging while we were eating. So, and then at night we put our phones in airplane mode, just conserve batteries. So it worked out, but it was just one of those little unexpected things. When we got our room, they told us just go upstairs and pick out a room, and we did. And we picked one kind of away from the stairway, so we wouldn't hear people coming and going. And it kind of backfired on us, because that was the room where the outlet didn't work. But we didn't even think about it till after the fact. So it worked out okay. We didn't run out of juice. We didn't run out of power on our phones. We were able to process all the credit cards that came in. And ironically enough, most people pay with cash, which is funny, because I was talking to Steven, and he was telling me that at his booth, everybody wanted to pay with a credit card. But at my booth, everybody wanted to pay with cash. I think we only ran 2 or 3 credit cards. So it's kind of a weird dichotomy there. But for the most part, everything, it went really smoothly. Everything was pretty well organized. There was a little hiccup in getting my presentation. I was the first one to speak on Saturday morning. So there was a little hiccup getting my presentation rolling and ready to go. And then the computer that they were running the presentation on, it was too slow to process my PowerPoint. So I probably gave, and all waiting for the slides to load and all that, I probably only was able to give about half my presentation on the first day. On the second day, it went great. They had me at a different venue. I was in a tent, and it went by pretty quick, and everything worked well. They had a really good tech set up in that. But yeah, in the Cutter Theater, I had a little problem with my presentation. And at one point, I thought I was just going to have to wing it and go without my PowerPoint and just talk, which I can do. I could have done that, but I didn't. I really didn't want to, because part of the allure of my presentation was to show people Port Chatham and to show them places, a place that they'll probably never get to see. In my opinion, that's, worth the price of admission alone. I mean, to get to Port Chatham is almost impossible for most people. So I was thinking that my presentation, if I could just, give them a little glimpse of Port Chatham and what it looks like and the scenery and the terrain, that would really be something special that they would remember. And also it would be a nice lead in for my book, a nice commercial for the book. So anyway, it went pretty smooth. I mean, anytime you have a first year conference, there's always going to be hiccups, but I thought it went well. I had a good time. I love spending time with Will Ulmer from Bigfoot of Stevens County. He was there. He was partying pretty hard, and by partying, I don't mean he was drinking and carousing. I mean he was networking and talking to people and looking at track casts, and I mean he was putting it in. He really had a good time. I don't think he got any sleep, and I really always enjoy spending time with Will. Great, phenomenal researcher, very attention to detail oriented. And I've got some more stuff coming up with him. I'm definitely going to do another episode here pretty soon about our time in the field together. We spent, was it 2 or 3 nights out in an area of Stevens County. And, I had wanted one of the main driving forces behind my trip down there was to get back into the area where we filmed Bigfoot Encounters of the Pacific Northwest. And I'll go into this a little bit more in detail in that episode where I talk about that outing. But alas, it did not happen because we drove into that area and they had started to log it. And there was, it didn't look like the same area. It was just completely cleared of trees. And the Squatch Road, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. The road is almost non-existent anymore. It's just been completely cleared out. And the campground was closed, and the sign on the campground just basically said hazards exist, campground closed. So we couldn't even get in there. And it really, I've never been one, maybe it's because I live in Alaska, I've never really been one that's been worried about Bigfoot's habitat or them running out of places to live or anything like that. Because, I live in Alaska, and if one area gets developed, they can just move to another pretty easy. It's pretty massive. There's a lot of available land for them. But seeing that, it kind of, it kind of sparked a little anger in me, because I know, well, I don't know, but I'm positive that they live in that area and that they're around there. And it kind of made me mad knowing that they're probably getting displaced. So anyway, that's a story for another time. We're going to talk about Metaline Falls today, but yeah, the trip back into to the film site of Bigfoot Encounters of the Pacific Northwest, it didn't happen. I was looking forward to that more than anything, and because of recent logging, the area was closed. So I'll have a video and another podcast out on that soon. But anyway, at the Metaline Falls Festival, I finally got to meet Dr. Robert Alley, author of Raincoast Sasquatch and his new book, Brushes with Bigfoot. I took my copy of Raincoast Sasquatch and had him sign it, and then I also purchased a copy of his new book and had him sign that as well. So I'm so happy that I have both copies of his book, or both editions of his book, and they're signed, and just was really glad to meet him. He's on such a different level. If you get him going, he can just talk and talk and talk about all kinds of things, from environment to the different types of behavior to all kinds of stuff. And it's almost too much. It's kind of like drinking out of a fire hose, listening to Dr. Alley, because he can talk for hours, and it's just so much information to process that it almost overwhelms you. But I really enjoyed meeting him. It was really honor. After I've read Raincoast Sasquatch probably 3 or 4 times, and to finally get to meet him and just hear him talk about the different types of encounters up here in Alaska and some of his experiences. It was just amazing. And then, of course, who else was there? Let's see. Bob Gimlin was there. It's always great to see Bob. I love Bob. And I got him to do a little promo for the show, which I'm going to edit up, and maybe I'll attach it to the beginning of this episode. And I took him a patch from the Homer Police Department, and because as you know, Bob's lived a very interesting life. He's done a lot of things, and at one point he was a police officer. I believe he was a reserve officer, and I gave him a patch. And I actually took several patches because I knew there was going to be some representatives of law enforcement there. And so I gave Bob a patch, and I also gave a gentleman from the Border Patrol a patch, and he traded me the patch for a really cool challenge coin. And if you want to see that, you can check out the companion video of this podcast, the Metaline Falls slideshow. I actually did a slideshow because we didn't get a whole lot of video. And most of the time when I wandered away from my table, I left my phone in case my wife needed to run a credit card or something. So I didn't get a ton of video. And that was another problem we ran into. My phone would connect to the credit card reader and hers would not. So even though we had tested it before we left and it was working fine. So there's always something, and it's a good thing, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So we had a backup, and luckily for whatever reason, hers wasn't working. So we were able to use mine in the meantime, but it meant I had to leave my phone behind a lot and miss out on some really cool videos and pictures and stuff. So it is what it is. If you want to check that video out, it's on my YouTube page, the Alasquatch YouTube page, or channel, I'm still new to all this social media stuff and begging for likes and subscriptions. So if you head over there cool. I'm talking too fast. If you head over to the Alasquatch YouTube channel, give us a like and subscribe. I'm trying to get my subscription numbers up just because I want to try and monetize the channel. And it's not really because I want the money. It's because I don't want other people to profit from it. If you guys are familiar, I've been grousing recently about how I found out they were showing ads on my channel and I'm not getting paid for it. Somebody else is obviously making that money. And the way they justify it is if you have under a certain amount of subscribers, they can just do whatever they want. So if you could please... you don't have to really even watch any videos. I'd appreciate it if you did, though. If you just swing on over there to the Alasquatch YouTube channel and give it a subscription. That way, big tech will stop profiting from my work. I'd appreciate it. Let's see. What else? Let's keep it happy. I don't want to complain about too much. Speaking of Bob Gimlin, so my wife, I guess I am too, but my wife is a fanatic fan of a podcast called Tell 'em Steve Dave. And for those of you that are not aware, it's a podcast that's it's about these 3 friends, and they all kind of got their, I guess I don't want to say start, but they're all friends of the filmmaker Kevin Smith. And the name of the podcast, Tell 'em Steve Dave, is based on a line in a movie that Kevin Smith did. And I think it actually pops up in several of his movies. But anyway, the podcast, Tell 'em Steve Dave, it's been around for years and years. And it's almost like Seinfeld. It's a podcast about nothing. I mean, they just, every now and then they'll pick something out of the news to talk about. Or they'll just talk about their lives or what's going on. And it's really funny. And they're really funny guys. It's really entertaining. If you just come into it, like, if you've never heard it before and you just listen to an episode like tomorrow, the newest episode, you might not get it. Like you might have to listen for a little while because you have to kind of get to know the guys on the podcast and just kind of get a feel for them. Because, listening to it we've been listening to it for years. So it's kind of like listening to old friends. And I know what you're saying. What the hell does this have to do with Bigfoot? I'm getting there. So recently, they were doing a podcast about they were talking about that Sasquatch show on Hulu, and they were talking about basically how they didn't think Bigfoot was real, and that the PG film wasn't real, and they were calling Bob Gimlin, they were calling him Bob Gremlin, and they were just kind of being, it was basically somebody that had done absolutely no research or looking into the subject talking about it. So you can only imagine, like I'm sitting there like, it's Gimlin, Gimlin, and I'm like squirming in my shoes, trying to like wanting to scream through the mic to tell them what's going on. And anyway, so we're at the Metaline Falls Festival, and my wife thought it would be funny to get a snippet of Bob Gimlin going, "Tell him, Steve, Dave." so she asked Bob, and of course Bob, being a gentleman, he obliged. So she got him saying, actually I think he says, "Hell him, Steve, Dave," instead of "tell him," but he it was pretty cool. And she sent it to him. I don't know that they've reacted to it or if they've even really seen it, but it was pretty funny. So we got Bob Gimlin to set the record straight for "Tell him, Steve, Dave." And actually, it's kind of apt if you think about it, because they couldn't get his name right and he couldn't get their name right. So it's pretty funny. But yeah, that was a really cool moment, seeing my wife interact with Bob Gimlin and just trying to get him to understand, like giving him this like really quick and down and dirty explanation of "Tell him, Steve, Dave," and how they were getting his name wrong, and she wanted to send him something from him, and it was pretty cute. Otherwise, I really didn't get to spend a whole lot of time. I didn't get to see any of the other presentations. I spent most of the time trying to man my booth, because I just, I wanted to be available to personalize books for people. And we sold quite a few. We didn't sell quite as many as I wanted. And I think a lot of reason for that was they had the vendors on one side of town, and then they had the speakers and the personalities on the other side of town next to the theater. And we had a few people come through that were like, "Oh, we didn't know you guys were over here." And I feel like a lot of times before the people had already walked through the vendor area. And a lot of times when people go to something like that, they'll set aside a certain amount of money. Like, "Oh, okay, I'm going to take, like $50 or $100 or whatever to spend." And then they'll walk through the vendor area and they spend their money. Well, then they were coming over to where we were and they had already reached their budget, and they were like, "Oh." So I've actually, after the conference, I've sold a few books online on my website. And I just wonder if it's people that saw it at the conference and for whatever reason couldn't pick it up there and then ordered it later on. So anyway, that was probably my chief, I don't want to say complaint, but that was probably my chief concern of the conference, was just the placement of where they put us. It's been addressed. It sounds like next year they're going to do something different, and they're going to have us maybe in with the regular vendors, and maybe just have a certain section of the vendor area where they'll have the personalities or something. So we'll see how it goes. I'm looking forward. I definitely want to go back, just because, one, I love the little town. I love the people there. The volunteers were so helpful. Everybody that was organizing it and putting it together was just so friendly. And another reason is because I really want to go back there and do some more research and looking around and camping. I had a really great time. However, no one was as surprised as I while I'm out doing my camping and research. I hate calling it research, but it's just for levity's sake. And we hit a unprecedented heat wave in that area. I mean, one day it was like 108 degrees, and I'm, of course, sleeping outside or sleeping in the car and sleeping, like in campgrounds. Oh my gosh, it was so hot. And that was a challenge that I really didn't think I was going to have to face while I was there. I knew it would be warm, but I didn't know that it would be, heat stroke warm. So I'll address that in another podcast where I talk about some of my outings and stuff like that. But man, of all the luck, I hit the Pacific Northwest right in time for a unprecedented heat wave. It was crazy, and I was surprised, to say the least. I knew it was going to get warm, but when it started hitting 100, 102, 104, and like I said, at one point, I think it was 108 degrees, which may be some of the warmest temperatures I've ever spent outdoors in. I think I was in Louisiana one year for a military exercise, and it was probably in the 80s and 90s, but I think that was probably the first time I've ever been out in 100 plus degree heat and actually like sleeping outside in it. So yeah, it was something that I was not prepared for. I think I bought 4 cases of water, and I think I went through about 3 of them. I think I had one left over at the end of my expedition. So anyway, I'll have another podcast, and I'll have some videos up detailing that and my adventures there in Stevens County. If you guys want to see some photos and learn some more about the Metaline Falls Bigfoot Festival, you can check out my YouTube channel, and you can watch a little slideshow I put together. Also, Grassman58, the Bigfoot of Stevens County YouTube channel, he has a really cool video he put together of the Metaline Falls Bigfoot Festival. You can check his video out. You can go give him some likes and some subscriptions. And I think I'm going to put a pin in it there. I'm looking forward to going back to that area of the country again, spending some more time there, both for festivals and conferences and just general squatching. I think they have a pretty healthy population in that area, and I think that's a good area to concentrate your efforts if you're so inclined. So anyway, guys, I'm going to put a pin in it there, and I'll pick it up hopefully next week with another episode and another companion video. And you guys keep on listening and give me some likes and subscribes. Review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to. I appreciate it, and keep it squatchy out there. And hopefully, if you're having a great summer, you can go out and enjoy a Bigfoot festival or conference in your area. I think if you're into the subject, I think everybody should go to at least one and just experience it. They're really great ways to meet new people and network and learn new things. Of course, there's vendors there. If you're into that kind of stuff, you can spend money. You absolutely don't have to spend money other than to get into the conference, probably. Otherwise, I mean, it's just it's like a Bigfoot party. And there's lots of stuff there available, like party favors and knickknacks and stuff free to buy. If not, then you can just talk to the speakers and presenters and listen to their presentations and hopefully come away with some great knowledge. But I think, all in all, I think Bigfoot conferences are a good thing. I know there's a lot of people that are down on them. There are people that call them flea markets and just wastes of time and money, and I don't feel that way. Every time, like I said earlier, every time I go to one, I learn something. I walk away with something that I feel is important, that I probably would not have gotten otherwise. And plus, you get that face-to-face interaction that you just don't get on the internet. It was great meeting a lot of the enthusiasts and researchers that I know of online and am friends with online, but have never met in person. Had some great times. Todd Hale, Nate Rudd, Kevin Llewellyn, Dr. Alley. I mean, it was just so many people there. It was great to finally put, a name to, or a face to the name, and, give them a good handshake and just spend some time with them. So in my book, Bigfoot conferences are 100% worth it. So if you guys are curious about it or interested, I definitely think you should check one out. All right, guys. So I'm going to be back soon with some more Last Watch goodness, and I hope you enjoy the show. We've got some great stuff coming up for you. Some great content. We're actually going to start getting into my time in the woods in the next episode. So be looking for that. I'm going to be reviewing Dr. Alley's new book, Brushes with Bigfoot. So that's going to be coming up on a future episode. And don't forget, on September 4th, we're going to be having the Boreal Bigfoot Expo in Alaska. It's going to be one of the first Bigfoot conferences in Alaska that I'm aware of. So tickets are on sale for that now. I'll be having Jesse Desmond here on the show here in the next few weeks to promote that and tell you more about it. It's pretty easy to find, though, if you just Google Boreal Bigfoot Expo. They've got their own website where you can go buy tickets, look at who's going to be speaking and all that good stuff. And we should be up there on September the 4th, and you can come by and see us and listen to me drone on. So, all right, guys, I'm going to get off here. I got stuff to do. Be sure and swing over to the YouTube channel and check out the videos. And I hope you guys are having a great summer. Good night.